here in Matthew 25, Jesus continues this discourse by giving two parables. We're going to look at the first parable today, and the first parable is the parable of the wise and foolish virgins in verses 1 to 13. Now, a parable is a story taken from everyday life that illustrates a biblical truth. It's a story taken from everyday life that illustrates a biblical truth. And usually, parables have one main point, one main lesson, one main takeaway for us to learn. We should not use parables to build doctrine. We shouldn't attempt to interpret the meaning and symbolism of every single phrase and every word in a parable. We don't treat a parable like we treat the book of Ephesians or Romans. Again, a parable is just a story that illustrates a biblical truth and usually has one main point to it. And if we try to figure out every detail and every possible meaning in a parable, we'll lose the basic point the parable teaches. As the saying goes, we'll miss the forest because of the trees. So this parable here in chapter 25, it's about 10 virgins and a wedding. And these 10 virgins are like the bridal party in a wedding today. So you can think of them kind of like bridesmaids. And they served a very important role in a wedding. They escorted the bride to her wedding celebration. And it helps to understand a little bit about Jewish weddings in the first century. Typically, in ancient Israel, marriages were arranged by the parents of the groom and the bride. Some of you, I know, come from cultures that still have arranged marriages. In that time, marriages were arranged by the parents when the children were very young. So you can imagine, you and your best friend, you like watching the Ravens together on Sunday. You like playing golf together when the weather's nice. You have a son, he has a daughter. Why don't we make an arrangement? This is like a match made in heaven. Then we can just watch the games every Sunday together as a big family. And once the son and daughter were older, they would enter what was called the espousal period or the betrothal period. During the betrothal period, the man and the woman would enter into a formal covenant of marriage. They would be considered legally married during the betrothal period. But they would not consummate the marriage at that point during the betrothal. If you remember, the Bible tells us that Joseph and Mary were betrothed when Mary was found with child. So they were in the second phase of a Jewish wedding, the betrothal period. In Matthew chapter 1, verse 18, if you're taking notes, it says Mary was betrothed to Joseph, but it was before they came together physically, when Mary was found with child of the Holy Spirit. And in that same passage, Joseph is referred to as her husband, because they're legally married, even though they haven't consummated the marriage. When he finds out that Mary is pregnant, he wants to divorce her quietly, it says, because they were legally married during the betrothal period. And a couple would be in the betrothal period for about a year. And during that year, the groom would build an addition on his father's house for he and his bride to live in together. Again, there are some cultures that still practice this, where the bride will go live in the home of the groom's parents with her husband and his family. If you're taking notes, Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, Genesis 2:24, the husband is instructed to leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, but the wife is not instructed to leave her parents and be joined to her husband. Why? Because the wife has already left her parents, her father and mother, and joined her husband and lives in his parents' home. And so the instruction there is given only to the man the husband because he is still living at home with his parents. And the instruction is really saying to the husband, even though you're still physically living with your parents, you need to emotionally leave your father and mother and cleave to your wife while you're living under the same roof with your parents. The wife doesn't need those instructions because she has left her parents and moved in with the husband's family. And so the groom spends about a year building an addition on his father's house. And what did Jesus say to his bride, the church? In my Father's house are many rooms. I go to prepare a place for you, and I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. Jesus was using imagery from a Jewish wedding. And the custom was the father of the groom determined when the addition on the house was completed. He decided when the addition was finished. Now, if it were me, I'd be going to my son every other day saying, hey, I watched this HGTV show and they had a really good idea. I think you should add that. I'd be continually adding new things on the project, and my son would be like, Dad, I just want to get married. This is fine. So the father of the groom determined when the addition was completed, and the father is the one who gave his son permission to go get his bride. Now look back in chapter 24, verse 36. Chapter 24, verse 36. Look at what Jesus said. But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Only the father of the groom knows the day and the hour when he will send his son to get his bride. And Jesus says here, it's only the Father in heaven who knows the day and the hour, who will send our bridegroom, Jesus Christ, to get his bride, the church. Are you with me? You understand?